Hi there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. My name is Abhijit Podcast, and we are going live on various places, which is LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of it. So if you want to join in, feel free to ask your questions. And to begin with, just tell me if you are joining us from a particular city. Tell me what your questions are, because today's guest is going to be somebody who has had a very interesting career. And there is a small story about where we met. And why I think that it would be great to have a chat with my guest today, Rajiv Bhalla. So, just by way of an introduction, Rajiv Bhalla is the former MD of Barco, which is a company which you must have used and seen their projectors. And they actually, beyond that, they are into visualization in a very big way. So, this is what, actually I got interested in when I heard a fabulous story that he shared with me. Uh, and I'm going to, of course, not break the surprise, but I actually asked Rajiv where he got so many of his ideas from, and Rajiv Bhalla has since leaving his role as the MD, former MD of Barco, he has actually led it up, being a mentor to several startups. He's advising individuals. He's a keynote speaker, and of course, I will tell you that I truly enjoy, reading what he writes on, all the different, his LinkedIn posts are pretty interesting. And I have always thought that that's a great way in which, Rajiv has really used his talent and skills for the benefit of a number of other people. So today I'm going to actually talk to you. And Nikita Saifullah, thank you so much for being here and sharing your views. One question that you may have noticed that comes up very often, when I was doing my LinkedIn audio live yesterday and on some of the other occasions when I've done it, one of the things that comes up is that how the career path as we define it has really changed so much. So our career path has, changed because it's no longer something which is very predictable. Our career path is something which is really going into a number of different areas. If you see, it used to be this kind of a career path, and it was really that we had a three-stage career path. It was learn, earn, and retire. So you could learn, you get your degree, and then you start working, and pretty much you could change employers if necessary, but by and large, you utilize the same skill that you were taught in college, and then once you reach a certain age. Now, funnily, that also changes from country to country, year to because in some professions you retire in your 40s. In some professions, you retire mandatorily in your 50s. In some professions, you retire in 60s. And then there are professions like being a politician where there is no retirement age. So that's for a different time and space. We should actually discuss whether a mandatory retirement is something that you should be looking at anyway. Um, and here, you know, uh, uh, I'm sorry, there has been some technical issue, and the my guest is not able to join. But nevertheless, I'm happy to answer any of your questions and take that here. Thank you, Kuldeep, Saifullah, and Nikita, for joining and sharing your comment here. If you have a question about your career path, etc., this is the place. This is a new podcast, so bear with me as we go through some of these initial teething glitches. We are really going to be talking about a bunch of different things. We are going to be talking about careers in this particular place, looking at how it has changed and what strategies you should potentially use as you build your career choices. So one of the pieces that I wanted to bring for you today is that career model of career 1.0, which is, you have a predefined career path and you stay to that because, you leverage your skills in the most powerful way and build your career path. That actually is something that has really worked well for many places, still does. So if you see in my book, I talk about scientists who really do just that, or you name some of our Bollywood's famous musicians. They really are people who've actually followed that really well. So you do have people who can do the same music composition for years together throughout their life. So that is another kind of an option. So you have, career 1.0 where you monetize the same skill. Career 2.0 is where you actually pick up a skill by yourself. In many cases, people have done that using their childhood passion. One of the best examples of this I can think of is someone like Palash Sen, the lead singer for the band Euphoria. He has a degree in medicine. He's actually, a fairly, he's actually a fairly accomplished musician. He's also a fairly accomplished doctor. He has a degree in medicine. This is something that I find fascinating about Palash is that he has managed to juggle both and is equally good in both. Though I would argue that I've never had a chance to, find out how good is he as a doctor, but I certainly know that he's really good as a musician. So that's, a kind of a career 2.0 model. Or for that matter, I can think of Atul Khatri, the stand-up comedian. He's had a company where he worked in the area of he worked, Atul Khatri worked in an IT company that he owned, his family owned actually. He and his brothers, together they ran this IT company. He was running it, doing well. And then he decides to actually start becoming a stand up comedian. So he kind of, as he says in one of the conversations, I heard him say that he is really sort of operating in two different zones. So he describes it as riding two horses at the same time, which is a really tricky way to operate. But he really started to dabble in his love for stand-up comedy, and decided that, well, this is a good time that he's going to try it out. So he started doing it on the odd occasion, grew that, his audience, started putting his videos online. As he got a good response, he started to shift away and start to devote more of his time and energy in the second skill that he has, which is stand-up comedy, and has really made a career out of that. So that's the career 2.0 model. So you have like a real uh, steady income stream, and you start to generate another income stream from a skill which you have not got any formal training in, at least to begin with. Very often these are, skills that you've pursued because you've had a hobby which got you to do this, and those are some of the ways in which we've done that. The third area, which is where my book is all about, is called Career 3.0. Career 3.0 has actually been one of the models that has been triggered by three broad shifts. The first is that, Career 3.0 is where you monetize three or more different skills in three or more ecosystem. A good way to think about it is if you look at Devdutt Patnaik, the mythologist. He's of course well known as a mythologist. Devdutt is also actually a qualified doctor. So I don't know what is it with these doctors that they also actually want to do something completely different. But Devdutt, does multiple things. He's a fabulous illustrator. He writes really well, and that's what he used to do earlier. He started to write little short columns, then he started to write a book, then he started to illustrate and write together. and he's got such a distinctive, drawing style. I'm a big fan of his drawings, of course, and not to mention his some of his writings are deeply insightful, and he talks about various things on mythology, and he's sort of done series on Netflix. He's got very popular radio shows in multiple ecosystems. He is monetizing his different skills. So those are some of the ways in which you've got great examples of this is what I think the world is going to come to for three reasons. I'm going to talk about that briefly, and then bring up some of your questions and comments. Thank you so much for joining. Nikita, your question is, what business is for a woman to choose for a women's startup? Well, I don't think there is anything which is specific to women starting up. I just don't think that's limited by gender. Anything that you think there is a opportunity in the marketplace wherever you are operating, that I think is an opportunity for a startup. And you got to decide whether that startup is going to be run by just you, or are you going to work with a set of people. How large that startup is going to be, you can either take an organic decision that as the startup expands, you keep expanding with it, or you might decide that you are going to operate in a limited space for a span of time to test the markets. There are multiple ways you can do that, and this is one of the ways in which you can run your own startup. So, Nikita, good luck with that. Thank you so much, and I hope that answers your question. But I'm also going to invite some of the other people to share your comments, out here. Bring it up here. Sarah Luel Nyamu, I'm going to sort of say that thank you for this podcast. I do enjoy reading your newsletters. Thank you so much, Sarah. I would love to have you as my guest on my podcast. Oh, I would totally love to join you on your podcast. So just let me know, drop me a mail, DM on LinkedIn, and we can do this. There is another question from Chayan. Chayan Gupta, thank you for being here. Your question is, India offers a very young population in the workforce. How do people like me who are 45 plus extend our work life, though I can beat at 30 years in marathons? Well, okay. So, Chayan, that's a fabulous question. I think when you look at, as I said, the reason why Career 3.0 is going to progressively start to become the dominant model is, if you look at all the layoffs that are happening in various sectors, you look at what's happening in media, look at what's happening in tech, look at what's happening in pharma, all the companies, that you can think of, regardless of sectors, FMCGs, all of them are trimming their workforce. Part of the reason is, of course, that most of these companies are overhired during the pandemic, but and then they are sort of really trimming the workforce at this point of time. But that apart, there is something else which is happening, which is sometimes invisible, which is that business models are shifting. An example of that is, if you see how media is shifting, is that a number of different things have changed in media, and that is creating a different kind of an opportunity. So that's creating the rise of the Career 3.0, because the skills also have a very short shelf life. IBM says a technical skill lasts you only for 2.5 to 3 years, so which means at all stages you got to reinvent yourself. And then you have the third reason, which is that human beings are living longer. So you kind of said that, Chen, your question was, how do people like me at 45 plus extend our work life? I think the answer is, in my book, I talk about 6 skills. And I'm going to briefly mention that before bringing on my guest, Rajiv, who's joining us in the next couple of seconds. The 6 skills I talk about that you must build, it's detailed out in the book. One is, how do you learn what you have not been formally taught? And second skill is that you actually land up teaching it online. So you build a large community, and you can become part of different ecosystems, which is the third skill. How do you become part of different ecosystems? Fourth is that you are a great storyteller that helps you really, expand your audience online. And the fifth element is, how do you build a strong personal brand? And the sixth is, how do you really think like a venture capitalist? As you start having one particular skill where you are an expert, you start building a second skill. As that becomes a little better, you build the third skill, and so on and so forth. At any given point of time, some of your skills will be improving in their expert. You'll become much better at it, and in some cases that skill is going to no longer be relevant. Having said that, I'm going to sort of invite my real guest today. We've managed to fix the technical glitch, and I'm thankful for my friend Rajiv Bhalla to join. Rajiv is the former MD of Barco, and I'm going to ask him to do a um, different kind of introduction. He's going to introduce himself through his stories. And as I said, he's a mentor to several people. He's a coach. He is also a wonderful, wonderful storyteller. And I said before, I'm a fan of his writings. So let me get Rajiv on stage. Thank you, Rajiv, for joining. And I so
Pleasure.
appreciate this. Uh, Thank you very much. I actually wanted to welcome you, and I don't think I did justice to your introduction. So, Rajiv, how do you describe yourself today? Post work as the managing director of Barco. You know, what is life like for you today? What are the different things you are doing? And explain that to me in the model of Career 3.0. How is that looking at it?
Well, as you call out in Career 3.0, we've all gone through stages of Career 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. And in Career 1.0, it's about managing in one environment and doing one job and specializing in it. And as you move towards 3.0, you could have three plus different environments under which you're doing two or three different things, right? Having transitioned out of Barco, I've really used this transition period to kind of uh, try to reinvent myself. We are all living longer, working longer, and as one journeys through life, one realizes that one needs to constantly be a lifelong learner, learning new skills and value adding to oneself. In this period, as someone put it, I'm like that butterfly that is going on to different flowers and trying to get the nectar out of those flowers. So I'm experimenting. Um, I'm teaching, I'm consulting, I'm building on some of my hobbies. One of those on the bucket list was really to, get going with the guitar. I've lost some amount of weight, so I'm focusing on building a leaner, meaner me. I'm kind of really trying and experimenting different things. Some of them will become monetizable soon, and I think that's a great experience that I'm having, Abhijit.
I think that's incredible, Rajiv. The way you describe it, you are teaching, you're sort of mentoring people, you're consulting, you're focusing on your health, you're picking up your hobby. And I think when I, listen to you describe this, I kind of think that that's probably the best answer. Chayan Gupta had asked this question that how do people like me who are 45 plus extend our work life? And I think that's probably a great answer. I don't know. How would you, is that what people should start doing early in their life? If so, at what stage can you start doing that? Rajiv,
Well,
what's your
when
advice?
frankly, you can start as young as 22 or even earlier. Um, I can speak from my own experience. My son at 22 is working with a company, but he's also kind of pursuing his hobby. Uh, I'm proud to say recently he was kind of awarded, the title of being one of the lead influencers on LinkedIn on sustainability. So I think there's no real age. The sooner you start, the better it is. And specifically in a post-pandemic world, one is really seeing that work is not a place, work is outcomes and results. So you can do multiple things from anywhere. The key is to create impact. And I think, I would say, on hindsight, it's good to do, it's good uh, to kind of have one or two skills that you can build on. As you say, when we've been talking often, work on your hobby, and that hobby is going to help you as you move ahead. So I think one needs to continue to do new things, be a lifelong learner, and open yourself to the world of opportunities.
Absolutely. I want to, though, I want to take you back to your career journey. When you started, what was your graduation degree in? What did you graduate
So,
in, and
so
what did
I
you want
did,
to be then when you started your career?
you know, I come from a generation where it was considered the thing to start off on a job and end with that job, right? End your career with that job. Um, in our times, you either became an engineer, a doctor, or a CA, or a lawyer. So I did my electronic engineering, and that led me immediately after engineering to working on the shop floor, assembling amplifiers, working on assembling even computers with another organization. And then life took a so-called technical turn, which led
Mhm.
me on a multinational journey.
I want to sort of decode it periodically as you are talking. You started first, you did your engineering, and then did, the standard thing, a career 1.0 model. You pick up a job in what you have qualified in. So you qualified as an electronic engineer, and then became an engineer. Subsequent to that, what was this technical turn that changed your life?
So I was working with uh, this largest Indian firm that deals in professional audio equipment, and I was coming back from Chennai on a last flight out of Chennai, and we were just about 30 minutes away from Chennai after taking off when you heard a big boom. And the pilot comes on air and says, "Hey, ladies and gentlemen, nothing to be afraid. We've just got a technical glitch." Who've traveled a bit understand when you hear a boom, and the pilot comes out sounding reassuring that there's something amiss. And we all could figure out that there is a major issue. And the pilot told us, "Hey, we are turning back and we will land in Chennai in another 20 minutes." Uh, I still kind of recollect the image. I remember seeing folks there who almost seemed to
Praying.
suggest, "Hey, in flight, hey, let's stay calm," but their faces seem to be saying, "Hey, should we write our will?" Anyhow, um, as we landed, being the last flight out, the airline put us on into a hotel, and as folks usually do, I kind of wanted to unwind, de-stress, and I went to the pub in the hotel. And a few moments later, a gentleman comes to me, introduces himself as KPR, leading consultant who heads
Mafa consultant.
yeah, who heads Malfoy. And, over conversation, over beer, he kind of offers me a job with a German multinational based out of Chennai in product management. And that's how I say that my journey onto the multinational arena began because of a technical glitch. And frankly, there was no looking back after that, Abhijit.
So again, let me pause and decode this segment. So you were an engineer working in an engineering role, and you're sort of really happy doing that. And then there is on a plane journey, there's a technical snag, and you kind of have literally have an interview in a pub. job interview with the headhunter in
Yeah.
a pub,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that lands you into a completely different career trajectory. You land up being part of a global sort of on a global career journey. And the reason why I sort of say that is because there's somebody here, who has said that, can you please help me how an Indian HR person can land a job overseas? Well, so I don't know whether that your example is going to be of much help to this LinkedIn user who's asked that question. But I also think that I have often thought that we like to think about our career in terms of very planned sequences. You plan this out and you plan that out, and as someone says that risk is what happens when you have finished planning for all the risks. So when you plan out for all the risks, and this is what happens. It's also the time when most of the opportunities happen, and we'll spend a little more time talking about the role that coincidences and pivots and opportunities play. Because the way I'm differentiating, Rajiv, is coincidences are things that you don't have a control over. You just happen to be in right place, right time. That's a coincidence. um, and an opportunity is something that you've actively spotted and you go after it and you chase that. And then there are pivots where you kind of think that the choice you made didn't work, and then you kind of make a pivot, you make a shift, and you want to do different things, sometimes planfully, sometimes unplanned, both ways. I want to sort of really focus our conversation today on how did you build your skills to eventually land up being at the top. You are the managing director of a firm. How do you see your skills changing? What did you do to build skills that have helped you? And in retrospect, what would you do better, different, when you look back from the role of being a managing director? And you can start with maybe at the entry level, what you did and what you think you should do, and then mid level, and so on and so forth.
So I think I was fortunate to have started with an Indian firm, and fresh out of college, my manager got me exposed to every job role, every function. So I worked on the shop floor. I assembled amplifiers. I looked into the paint or the powder coating area, did some work there, worked on the inventory management system, did imports, did exports, and then did sales and marketing. And I think over those 3.5 years, the exposure that I had has honestly helped me in all the jobs that I've done, right? So I have always said this to people that I interact with, or who seek my advice, that as you start off in your career, be open to learning as much as you can. The first few years of your life, you need to get as much exposure as you can, learn, and things will follow. I think my career then evolved partially because of this incident. So, as you said, timing sometimes plays an important role. I moved into this multinat, into product management, and soon moved into a French multinat as the head of marketing. And I remember when I was doing my marketing role, I had also finished my MBA in between. My manager gave me a tough, he gave me a tough time, saying, "Hey, Rajiv, you can't be sitting out of your vacuumized chambers looking at frameworks and making marketing programs. You ought to be out there in the marketplace, understanding what the customer wants, uh, what he sees value in, work around the country, because in India also you can't paint the entire country with one brush. So you have to have a different strokes for different folks approach." So one learned there. As I moved on um, into a liquor organization, I learned the art of building brands using surrogate advertising. And whilst I was in the liquor firm, I was approached by a consultant who wanted me to pitch for a role in Microsoft on education programs. And I remember talking to my hiring manager, hey, how do you think I'm going to fit into this role? And she says, hey, Bhalla, as she said, you've taken people to an alcoholic high. Now you take them to a knowledgeable high. The high uh, has to remain constant. And as I moved there, I realized that once you move into a larger organization, uh, the game is all about storytelling, articulating your point of view, managing different stakeholders, and also working on with your team and ensuring that they get aligned with the organization's growth charter. So there one learned uh, the other softer skills or the power skills, as I'd like to say it, in
So,
terms of
yeah.
how crucial it is to kind of navigate through the world. uh,
Well, Kiran is appreciating what you have just said, Rajiv. But I'm going to pause and decode a couple of things that I pick up from this conversation. One, I think you talk about, your exposure to different fields altogether, different sectors from audio engineering to, a different, sector altogether to alcohol to education. When you are looking at that, a broader exposure probably prepares you um, for success as a managing director. Is that a valid conclusion I'm drawing, or um, and then of course you also talk about the importance. The second thing is the importance of people related skills, being able to influence, storytell. These are some of the things that you talk about. They are important, and I'm going to come back and ask you a follow-up question about storytelling and influencing. But have I drawn the right conclusions from your career
Well,
journey so
Abhijit,
far?
in my case, you're right. It might not be right for all. I've been fortunate, that I've worked across consumer electronics, liquor, software, semiconductors, IT infrastructure, and then visualization solutions companies. And I've also been fortunate to have worked across, organizations of different cultural backgrounds. I've worked with German organizations, French organizations, Americans, Japanese, and more recently the Belgian group. And you realize that when you work with different cultures, you realize that one, it gives you a broader global perspective. Two, it teaches you how to manage stakeholders at different levels. Three, it kind of helps you. It helped me actually in some ways pitch the India story, because all through I've always been talking about growth in India, and I've been fortunate to have driven growth in most of my roles. So when you work across different roles, you work from an individual contributor to a team player. You move from being a specialist to a generalist, and you learn how to kind of you know get work or from your team, and work towards building what I call as a PhD amongst your team members, or ensuring that they have passion, hunger, and desire to succeed.
That's very well said. PhD, some people in college used to say past higher secondary with difficulty, but that's clearly not the one that you have in mind. So, I wanted to sort of, go back to the stuff that you talked about, influencing and storytelling. Uh, Progressively, as you are looking at it, the first real um, acid test, in my view, from what you said, you actually talked about being a people manager. And what is the skill that you have there? Of course, you have the ability to influence people because you're managing a team. But can you really use formal authority to uh, get stuff done or work done? Or do you use more of informal authority when you become a first time people manager? What should you be doing? What could you be doing?
See, I think we all realize that every organization is as good as its team. And so also every people manager can be as effective as his or her own team, right? And there it becomes crucial for the people manager to kind of understand that the key towards success is that uh, he or she, as a people manager, builds trust. To build trust, one, you need to have an open and authentic communication. You need to have the team clearly aligned with what are the goals, objectives of the organization. Need to enable the team to work towards achieving those goals and objectives. And I think those days of, hey, getting work done because I'm the boss doesn't work. You need to have the team rallied around the vision of the organization, and you need to kind of just work towards enabling and empowering the team. At the end of it, as humans, we all like to be acknowledged for our successes. We all like to be challenged, and there also, I think, in every human being there is an intrinsic need or desire to value add to himself or herself, right? And there it's an important role. The people manager needs to play an important role in terms of ensuring that the team remains on the learning path. So you need to build a DNA of learning in the organization to ensure that the team value adds to themselves and the organization as they grow. So I think it's crucial that you work towards building a softer approach basis which you build trust.
There is a question here from Vivekanand Halapati. He says, "What's your take on being a generalist versus a specialist, and what has helped you in your career till date and beyond?" Great question, Vivekanand. What do you feel has enriched you more being a specialist? So depth versus breadth, is that a choice, or what do you think?
Well, very interesting question, Vivekanand. And again, there is no right answer in this, but to each one to themselves. Specifically in today's day and age, when you're seeing technology enable and disrupt, I've seen several folks who've gone on to become specialists. They've built on that skill. Today, a lot of folks who are kind of working on building skill sets around AI and so on, and then they've kind of moved towards higher ground. But as you evolve, you can be a specialist as an individual contributor and grow. Uh, but if you've been a sales and a marketing person, then the next natural thing is to evolve into profit center management, acquire a few more skills, and thereby get into a generalist role, which could be a people manager or leading an organization.
I'm going to share my point of view on this. Is
Sure.
I think in some of the areas, Rajiv, I would say that it becomes important to be a generalist in some disciplines. For example, in today's world, as technology, AI is really shaping every job. I think you need to be a generalist as far as AI and even people management and understanding the business. Some of your functional pieces, you need to be a generalist. In some of the areas that you are working in, you need to be a specialist, which is, are there things in your area of work that you can do better than anybody else? Are there things in your role that you can do better than anybody else? And perhaps in your organization, are you the go-to person or the expert who everybody relies on for doing work in some of these areas? So that's how I would look at it. But we've got a whole bunch of questions, so I'm going to sort of start moving a little quickly on this. Um, and this is a comment from Kiran. Kiran Chopra says, while storytelling is great, provided it's your own story, is that you've been there, you've done that kind of stuff, and it aligns to your personal values. Absolutely correct. Storytelling is also one of, probably, I think, as you go up pretty much from people manager role upwards, building that skill becomes important. That's what I think. And how do you describe storytelling? Because a lot of people think of storytelling as just spinning a yarn, which is fancy, which is not true. Though I define storytelling as making the truth more memorable. That's how I would define it. What's your definition?
I think you have your way with words, and I couldn't have said it better, Abhijit. Making those moments more memorable. Yes, and I think that's a key. We often sometimes tend to ramble, and I'm now going back into the corporate world. You're making a presentation, you're making an important presentation in front of some senior folks, and you go on and on and on. I think the first 2 or 3 minutes are crucial. So if you can uh, lay the foundation, start off with an interesting point in the form of a story, then you've got the audience's attention, and you can then go on and complete your task.
I'm reminded of a small incident from my school days. We were asked to write a story about getting lost in the forest. I think this was in the 10th grade, and my English teacher had given this yes, something for us to think about. So we wrote this story, and I wrote about how we were playing cricket, and it was in the evening, and we had a whole lot of my friends together, and somebody sort of, I was bowling, and this person actually hit the ball, and we were losing, and it was a big challenge for us. At this point of time, my English teacher struck out the entire piece that I had written so far, struck it out, and wrote "Get lost quickly." Which means that the story was really about getting lost in the forest. Why are you building such a huge preamble? I think that's a challenge a lot of us actually are guilty of. That we build very long preambles. There is a question from Ayan Banerjee. He has asked this question that does exposure to failure help the team to learn? And if so, um, let's imagine a scenario. I'm going to turn this into a slightly different question, which is how do you your team was to work on a certain project, deliver something, they have failed. How do you turn this failure? You are seething with anger because it's humiliating. You've missed something, you missed a deadline, or you've done something badly. Your team is sitting there. How do you turn it into a learning moment? What do you do?
I think in every challenge rests an opportunity, Ian, and it's how you convert that challenge or how you convert that failure into an opportunity is what really matters, right? And the key in today's world is it's okay to fail, but you must fail fast and you must fail forward. Use that failure as a learning experience so that you can repivot yourself, correct your mistakes, and deliver brighter outcomes. So I think uh, it's okay to fail as long as you use it as a learning experience to kind of move forward.
Sura Lakshmi Sarkar says, career today is leveraging your failures and successes and your experience to show one's authentic willingness to work flexibility with uncertainty. I think it's really well put.
Very well put.
I
Yeah.
also like Yeah, and I also like how Ross had shared it. I got to bring that up. He says that I like to create knowledge clusters and try to go deep in knowledge and expertise where possible with a 360-degree view of the environment. This is a great suggestion on how to, use failure as a learning moment. Yes, of course, it's all those emotions of yourself that you have to manage. I also think that sometimes being able to manage your own emotions is a very big part of success. How did you do that? How do you manage the time when you're obviously deeply upset with somebody in the office? You're disappointed, you're all the negative emotions, you're angry about some stuff. How do you handle those moments? Well, because people will always say you never let your emotions show. Is that good advice? Is it bad advice? What do you follow?
Well, I've actually evolved, and you've picked up on something where I have continued to work on and to evolve. But as I've journeyed through my life, I believe it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to have emotions as long as you can channelize that emotion in a constructive and positive way. So if you use that as a means to generate, to energize yourself, to challenge yourself, it's okay. So that's on an individual level. Uh, Whilst you're working towards managing a team, I think it's crucial to kind of manage. You think before you speak, and ensure that you kind of you know cool down before you express your point of view. So take that break. But it's okay. I remember I used to get flustered in the early days of my life, and I'd turn pink out here, and I'd say, oh shit, now
Yeah.
these guys will know that I'm getting angry. But it's fine. It's at the end of it, we are all humans. The key thing is to be authentic, and to somehow channelize your emotions in a constructive manner.
We have a big question from a LinkedIn user. Somehow your name doesn't show up, so sorry about not sharing your name. When it comes to being a people manager, what kind of a leadership style do you follow? Is it autocratic or democratic? Also, when it comes to being democratic, we tend to feel that employees take us for granted. How do you deal with something like this? Um, what's your take?
I think the days of autocracy are gone, right? At least in the organizations that one has been exposed to. You've got to earn the respect of your folks. And I can speak out of my own personal example. The last organization that I worked with had blue collared folks as well as young IT software guys. The blue collared folks were at an average age of about 40, 45. The IT folks were at an age of about 29, 30. And you know the Gen Z and the younger folks, the millennials, um, they come with incredible amount of confidence, and they know to some extent that, hey, the world is their battleground. So you got to kind of win them over, just like you got to win the blue collared folks over, through leading by example, through earning their respect, and by creating value for them. At the end of the day, people will work for a leader who they believe in. People will work for a leader who creates value for them, and people will work for a leader who is authentic.
Oh, and that's what Sona Lakshmi Sarkar's comment was, that for today, organizations are talking about radical transparency and authenticity, and you just can't wear masks all the time. So, great. Thank you very much for all your questions. Keep them coming. And I'm actually, just for the benefit of all those who joined in a little late before I got a chance to introduce Rajiv. My guest today is Rajiv Bhalla, the former MD of Barco, and he's also an advisor to startups. He's a consultant. He's a coach, and you should follow him on LinkedIn, where he writes some of the fabulous posts. Rajiv, how have you built your skill in writing? And I suddenly started noticing how good your posts are, and I really have been enjoying those. So, those of you who don't follow Rajiv, you're missing out. Love all the stuff that he writes about, and thank you for following Rajiv. So this is, I wanted to ask you, how do you do that? You write really well.
Thank you, Abhijit. There was, or let's be honest. I think I don't know if you've brought that out, but we met whilst doing the independent director program, right? Certification program, and over a period of time, we got to know each other better. And I remember in one of those conversations, you kind of prodded me to say, "Hey, people will want to read or listen Uh, to someone who is authentic and someone who tells his or her own story rather than following a cliched path." For me, as I work towards building on my writing skills over the last 4 or 5 years, I've always looked for those aha moments. Sometimes it happens when you're giving a hug to your mom or a loved one. Sometimes it happens whilst having a cup of tea whilst you're traveling in a train, or sometimes it could happen just while you're walking early in the morning, right? And there I try to relate with my own personal experience, and most of my blogs are around my personal experiences, what I've learned from them, and that's what I try to build in my writing style.
And when you have an idea, I sometimes wonder what to do because sometimes I get a idea in the middle of the night. If I don't get up and write it down right then, which means I actually have to physically get out of the bed, get to a place where I can scribble down, at least write in longhand what I'm doing. Um, Otherwise, that moment is gone. I find it very hard to remember stuff if I've just made a mental note and say, "This is what I'm going to write about," but then it just disappears. So it's fleeting. The
Fortunately,
muse
I don't
doesn't
get
visit
those
me.
ideas when I'm sleeping, so I don't get up in the middle of the night. But that's a great one. So
No, I think it is reflective of your sleep quality versus mine. I think that's the real piece. So we have a comment from Ross who says that leadership is something people fail to understand how important and powerful in a team it is in an organization. Great leaders improve environments and outcomes. Oh, I like that bit.
yeah.
Great leaders improve environments. Do you think this question that there's a question from Sona Lakshmi Sarkar. She says that about the acceptance of being radically transparent and courageous to provide feedback and still be open, in the still be open to accept in the Indian or Asian geography and culture. You worked across different continents, so what's your take on that? Does it work well if you're radically transparent? Um,
I think first of all, feedback is a gift, and as one evolves, both you need to kind of build on your skill of accepting feedback as well as giving feedback in a positive manner. The crucial thing is to detach the person from the problem, talk about the problem, give feedback which is constructive. um, as there have been instances in my career where I have disagreed with even my manager, uh, and I've kind of justified why I believe uh, I disagree with him, and how he or she could do things differently. At the end of it, we've all got to see that we work towards making the organization succeed, work together as a team. But if the manager says, hey, no, I've understood your point of view, but we are only going to do it my way, then I often you know put into practice a value called disagree and commit. So you point out why you disagree, but at the end of it, you've got to commit as a team member towards the larger goals of the organization. So I think feedback is good, but feedback needs to be given constructively. And if you can kind of remove the blunt edges or smoothen the blunt edges, that's always good. Detach the person from the problem and give feedback is what I'd say.
Ross says that feedback is a gift, and he loves that, and he's going to be telling his kids this. But my suggestion, at least my learning from my kids, is they prefer real gifts rather than feedback as a gift. So, Ross, you must keep that in mind. There's a great question coming from Preeti Shroff. Lovely to see you here, Preeti. Question is, how can Indian leaders bring a global mindset and professionalism for organizations and employees? What is your advice on that?
Well, I think it's crucial, first of all, as a leader to honestly work towards building a global mindset uh, uh, himself or herself, right? Uh, so we've got to move out of those hierarchical concepts. You've got to be looking towards being a lifelong learner for yourself and being a lifelong learner, encouraging lifelong learning in the organization. It's also crucial to kind of, you know, build in a concept where you work towards empowering your folks. One of my managers, PT, did tell me in during the course of my career that, hey, for me, and this was a manager from a Japanese organization who said, hey, I wish for my child to see the world, because when my child sees the world, he will understand different cultures, different concepts, will understand that different cultures work differently. But we as individuals have the same intrinsic wants, needs, and desires. So if you really kind of open up your mind towards accepting new things, and it starts from the top. If you have a global mindset, you can work towards building an organization that kind of has a broader outlook. I'm not sure if I've answered her question, but if you do, you have a perspective, Abhijit?
But I kind of think that a global mindset comes from two or three different pieces. One is to be able to understand, even within the country, there are differences. So, what I worked in different corners of India, north, south, east, and west. I think there are such radical differences between different states of the country. To be able to actually start watching for differences and similarities, even within the country that you're operating, is a great starting point. That's my first take. The second piece that I would sort of really look for is, when you think about travel, you can read up about a place, or you can travel to a place. Both are equally effective. Sometimes when you think that you are able to read up about a country. I mean, I may not be able to visit the country, but nothing prevents me from reading. So I think reading is an undervalued skill in building up your capability for things that you are not exposed to. So I would sort of really speak very sharply in favor of reading a lot. Today, we live in a golden age where all information is free. Listen to the biggest thinkers, experts on various things. And sometimes I feel that it's good to be alive to the differences between different cultures, but I also think that when you start to look at those differences, there's a fear that you might be generalizing and stereotyping cultures. So if I say, what's your example of how the Japanese culture is different from, let's say, the Belgian culture? Chances are that there, within the Japanese culture, there are hundreds of areas which are subtle. So I think being able to sort of look at that becomes important. Um, and I'm going to sort of push this question back to the audience. I would love to hear each one of you just respond. If you take a minute to write, uh, just 2 points. How do you personally, you, the audience, build your ability to learn about a world, something that you haven't seen or traveled to or known about? How do you become familiar with that, whether it's a subject, whether it's a country? I'd love to have your responses. So if you sort of join in, it would be great. We have some more questions. Thank you very much for all the questions. Nitin joined a little late. I'd like to ask how learning and development will become the first choice of the business to grow. If you've seen in the past, whenever layoffs happen, the first department who will get maximum of it is learning and development. Well, I'll share my first response to this, and then I'll have Rajiv, who's smiling. Rajiv, you're the person that they are worried about. The business leaders, knock off learning and development. I hope you have not been guilty of doing that. But I'll give my point of view, which is, I think it's really like saying that when a business is not doing well, I would actually think you should invest more in learning and development. It's really like saying if you are sinking, to stop investing in swimming lessons would be a really foolish perspective. So uh, start investing in swimming lessons if you are sinking. That's my take, but we'll come back to it. Rajiv, You're the guest. I want to hear what you have to say.
I think, again, in today's world, one has to consistently reinvent oneself to stay relevant, right? And I go back to a line that I read a few months back that said that every company is a digital company. Talk to me of a CXO who's afraid of technology, and I can say that there's a disaster waiting to happen. Over the last few months, I've been a part of several panels where they've discussed uh, the pros and cons of generative AI. Now, look, good or bad, we all need to learn to leverage generative AI to kind of improve productivity, improve efficiency, improve customer centricity, and so on. So how do you do that? You have to do it by continuously learning. So organizations that don't inculcate the DNA of learning are going to die, for the want of a better word. I'm sorry if this sounds a little harsh, but I think learning is uh, a key competitive advantage that organizations are going to have. And again, Abhijit, I remember in one of our conversations you said, or I think it's in your book where you mentioned that people are not going to lose jobs to AI. People are going to lose jobs to other folks who are
Who are
using AI,
using?
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think if one does not learn and does not, kind of build on a new skill, well, it's going to be difficult for the individual or the organization to survive and thrive.
Perfect. So we have got some responses from people to the question, how do you learn about companies or areas which you are not familiar with? And Sona Lakshmi says, cultural coffee snack sessions and deliberate cultural speed dating with individuals in the same company, or using platforms for expat meetups to learn about new cultures and languages. We have a response from Rajiv Ray, who says, reading needs us to invest a lot of time, but for small business owners like me, it is very difficult to get that spare time. Would you like to enlighten us about this? Okay, I'm going to share my idea on reading, and then I'm going to hand it over to Rajiv. My suggestion, Rajiv, I always, I tell people start small. And one of the ways to do it is to use a technique called 10 at 10. This is no specific technique. I just like to call it 10 at 10 because it's easy to remember. Um, 10 o'clock at night, for exactly 10 minutes, put a timer, read something for 10 minutes. The first day, reading for 10 minutes will seem awfully long to you. And it's just like really building a muscle. The first time when you lift up a weight, you don't go and lift 100 kgs at one shot. You actually tone it up. So you start by lifting maybe 5 kgs, 3 kgs, or whatever it is. And, and then you work your way up. So build your habit until you spend the next 2, 3, 4 months reading just for 10 minutes. You'll be amazed how much you do, in 10 minutes. Two, if you don't, if you are struggling with that, to begin with, ease yourself into this whole habit of staying still for 10 minutes to listen to an idea. I love listening to podcasts. I'm a podcast junkie. I listen to loads of them. That's another thing that you can do. Rajiv, what's your go to method?
I kind of listen to a lot of podcasts these days. I don't do the 10 on 10, but yes, I do ensure that I spend close to about half an hour in the morning and about 15 minutes before hitting the sack on reading something. Uh, what I've also learned is that it's sometimes important to kind of move from your favorite topic towards reading a little bit on art, reading a little bit on music, reading a little bit about politics, reading about business, and that kind of broadens your perspective. So I don't have a preset method, but I just pick up something and I read. And sometimes I just love what I read, and then I write something around that.
Oh, beautiful. We are actually coming up to the end of this time, but I have an idea for this, Rajiv. One is Alok Nigam actually says leadership is not so much about operating in the black and white environment, but how well you navigate through the gray areas.
That's it.
In such situations, the courage of the leader comes out to play. What's your view on this, Rajiv? Your take?
I think Alok has said it really well. So at the end of it, that's a key skill also to have, right? If you believe in something uh, and you've kind of done your research, then you need to have the courage to put your point and drive it through. Um, you know. I often follow, I love these lines which says that if you think you've beaten, you are. If you think you've lost, you have. Life's battles don't go to the stronger or faster person. Very often, the person who wins is the person who thinks he or she
Think
can. So at the end of it,
absolutely.
you've got to follow that and move ahead.
Thank you. And Ross also actually has an interesting suggestion. He says, leave a book in the bathroom and read a little when you're going to the bathroom. And he reads multiple books a year and it takes very little time. So he says, use the time that you're currently wasting. Well, my tip on that is I have trained myself to read on my phone. So I have those ebooks. So I download the books and read it. Or sometimes I'm really trying to learn about audiobooks and podcasts. So audiobooks, podcasts, ebooks, these are all ways in which your phone travels with you and you can actually use it to learn and read. Um, Rajiv, today we are, of course, unfortunately coming up to the end of the conversation, but I have a request and a question, so there are a whole lot of other questions which we didn't get a chance to answer, and I would hate for it to, go unanswered. So if you're okay, and can I invite you tomorrow for a LinkedIn audio conversation where we will
Sure.
answer some of these
I'd love to
questions?
do that. I'd love to do that, Abhijit.
So this is a public commitment, right?
Yes, sir.
So no going back, no
No
going back.
going.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Rajiv. So what we'll do here is what I'm suggesting. Thank you. I truly appreciate your doing this. What we'll do, everyone, is that we are going to have Rajiv and me. We'll start off this whole conversation tomorrow to do a really free-flowing LinkedIn audio, same time as we did today, 8 a.m. Pacific time in Seattle, which is where I am. It's going to be 9:30 p.m. in India. So tomorrow, so which is 24 hours from now, we'll have that. And I look forward to having you on LinkedIn for this LinkedIn audio conversation, where the only way that you need to sort of, what you need to do is you can either just listen, and if you have to ask a question, unmute yourself. So you got to change the settings in your browser, and then put your hand up. I'll bring you up on stage, and we can ask questions, pretty much like what Clubhouse used to be in the earlier days. So that'll be great. Rajiv, I want to summarize a couple of big takeaways in our conversation today. So one, I thought I loved the idea that, as you move from a sort of, I would say a traditional role where you joined engineering and then, went into becoming an engineer. Uh, it would have been great, but it wasn't something that you consciously, really deeply thought about alternatives, career choices, options, and then did that. It's something you jumped into. You later did your MBA, moved into a completely different area, which was marketing. Then you sort of worked across multiple sectors, and then you prepared yourself, in terms of the people management roles. That was one takeaway. And the other is also learning how to work in different cultural environments. And you talked about how you've reinvented yourself, and now you're doing a typical Career 3.0 kind of a conversation, which is you're coaching people, you're advising startups, you're consulting, you're reading, you're working on your health, you're learning to play the guitar. Absolutely wonderful. What a role model you are, Rajiv. Thank you very, very much for being here. And, you know, it's really fabulous to be able to have this conversation with you. Thank you, everyone, all those of you who are there who've joined in. I'm really thankful for you to be here and look forward to continuing this conversation tomorrow. Thanks a million. Every Wednesday, I have a conversation with, some amazing people. And if you think that your career journey is equally interesting, happy to have you, join in either on the LinkedIn audio or on in this particular forum, whatever works, we can do that. Until we see you next time, next week, same time. Goodbye. Thank you.